On this time every year, Steve and I do an episode about our best investments. And last year, we talked very heavily about all the health investments and health improvements we've been making. And for me personally, I am coming up on a year of this intensive health journey. And anytime I ever talk about the health journey that I've been on, the frustrations that I had, and the different things that I implemented, I always get questions. And I felt like it was the perfect time to share with you my 1 year anniversary of this intense but really fulfilling health journey that I've been on. So, today's episode, we're going to dive deep into what I've actually done, the improvements that I've seen, and why I'm so passionate about taking your health seriously and getting at the root issues as to why you feel this way.
So Chelsea's going to be really going into the specifics on this show, but I'm going to be kind of here just to dig out and be curious about the process and hopefully ask the questions that are in your head. So I guess, Chelsea, like, where did the health journey start for you? Like, this journey, like, where did you know, like, I need to make a change?
Yeah. So I want to preface by saying always felt like I'm a healthy person, lived a healthy lifestyle, had a good exercise routine. But this really stemmed from my second pregnancy and birth after having Ollie. So Ollie's now a little over a year and a half. But right after I had Ollie, I just felt like something was off in my body. And I know every pregnancy, everybody's body is different. So I'm not saying this to shame anybody's body or to say like you need to cut back on certain things. I'm just sharing with you like my journey. And I just knew after I had Ollie that something was off. And honestly, if I'm being fully transparent, like with Kaizen, our first son, like I lost the baby weight a lot faster than I was losing it with Ollie. But I was doing the same things. Like I was exercising, I was eating well. Like on
Yeah.
paper, I looked like a healthy person, but I wasn't seeing the number on the scale go down. And I also wasn't feeling good. Like I felt off. And you have to pay attention to those gut intuitions. I felt like I had gotten to a point where I knew something needed to change. And I've been hearing, of different things you could try. I just started following different Instagram accounts, learned about mineral testing, learned about different tests you could do. But I didn't want to go the DIY route. I didn't want to just take a course and try and like supplement to supplement. I really wanted to understand my body and get at the root cause. So it honestly came from a place of frustration. And I know it might be triggering to some people, but for me, like I knew that the number on the scale was not what it should be. And I know that I was like postpartum and I had a lot of amazing people in my life who were telling me like, give yourself grace. You just had a baby 6 months ago. And I had given myself a lot of grace, but there comes a time, at least I felt like I was like, I know that I need to change something, and my knowledge around my body and what is actually going on internally is not good enough to get me the results that I want. And so it was really out of a place of frustration and wanting to see like the number on the scale go down and actually feel and look my best, because I didn't feel good. Like, and Steven and I, like, we're on this podcast, we have a bunch of content out in the world, and it's really hard to show up on camera and be you when you don't feel like yourself. And when you look at yourself in the mirror and say like, man, I know that I can improve. I know something is off. And so that's where I
Yeah.
was. And I knew that I had never struggled with body worth or image or anything like that, but I was struggling really hard with it. And I just knew, I'm like, something needs to change. And the pain was strong enough for me to do something about it.
Yeah. And I remember, I mean, this is months and months of this going on and just like feeling awful about it and not loving photos that we're doing. And we're
Yeah.
still showing up on camera, doing these photo shoots and being on TikTok and Instagram,
Yeah.
all things. So, I mean, first of all, I just want to commend you for just like continue on and keeping going, even in the midst of like the unknown, like, cause that was really powerful how you still showed up, even though you weren't
Thanks.
feeling your best.
Mhm.
What was the first thing? Cause like when something like this happens, whether it's like you're trying to start a new business and you're like, I need to make this work, or health journey, like I feel like you go into this like explorer mode.
Yeah.
What was the first thing that you kind of like heard about or started going down, or like, oh, that's different, I'm going to try that? Do
Hmm.
you remember?
I don't remember one specific thing. I think I've always been health aware. And so I think just through different like social media accounts and maybe through a few
I feel
friend
like you started asking some friends,
yeah,
right?
I think I just started asking some friends about doing more in-depth testing and I felt like I was supplementing well for things and understood like, turmeric is good for this and taking your prenatal vitamin and vitamin C and all these things, but it just didn't feel like enough for me. And I was recommended by a friend to take this like hair and
It
mineral
was a hair
course.
test, right?
Yeah, it was a hair test, which you basically like you take this course and you send in a little piece of your hair to this lab, and then the girl who you hire, it's like $100 course or something. She because she has her license, she can send you the results, and then you have to like siphon through and figure out what you're off on and what you are. So it's kind of like a DIY way of doing things. You sign up for the course, she does the hair testing, and then she sends you results, but you kind of have to self-identify. So I'd already bought in that, and I was kind of interested in like this whole DIY thing. But then I had a conversation with a friend. She had been sharing about how she cured her Hashimoto's disease, which is an autoimmune disease. I'd never heard of Hashimoto's before. And so I think we were just at a conference and I asked her, like, oh, hey, like, your Hashimoto's girl, I know you referenced her before. Like, who would you recommend as like a naturopath? And she's like, oh, like, here's the girl that I would highly recommend. And she literally sent me to the now naturopath that I'm working with. So it was through kind of, you're asking me like how I found out about what I'm doing now through exploration, through finding out. But really, what made the differences was the referral from a friend who was like, here's actually what you need. And I know that there are different budgets when it comes to health, but where Steve and I are at, like, I didn't want a DIY experience. I didn't want to like take a million courses and try and figure out on my own what I needed. I wanted somebody to walk me through it. So when I say I just had my year anniversary, I'm talking about my year anniversary with working with a naturopath or functional medicine doctor. This has been a game changer for me. And I'm going to talk about working with her, what that was like, why I think every person on the planet, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that, should do functional medicine, like work with a functional medicine doctor or have specific tests that they know how to run. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about the extra things that we've invested in that have been recommended by my naturopath, but I also kind of dug a little bit deeper into the health journey. So I go to this conference. I'm frustrated. I'm trying to implement things on my own, but I know that that's not enough, like deep down. And I think I had this aha moment too that we talked about. And it was like, we've now at this point, we're 8-figure business owners. We've invested a lot financially into masterminds, into coaching programs, and in other areas we invested in, but we had never invested in like a health coach. And it was just like, if my pain is so high for figuring out what is going on at a cellular level, why have I not invested in like a health coach essentially and somebody who can actually point me in the right direction? So that was another aha moment, as well as having that conversation with a friend who recommended somebody to me. I love going off of recommendations. And honestly, like I had reached out to somebody else on Instagram who kind of had done like, a hormone imbalance, checking your minerals course. Again, it was DIY. And I actually reached out to her. I said, hey, like, do you do any like one-on-one coaching? And she said, no, she didn't want to do one-on-one coaching, which is fine that she didn't have that business model set up, but I would have paid probably whatever at that point because I think a random friend had recommended that person to me. So it's just like through friend recommendations. But the thing that I love about functional medicine doctors is they test and know how to test for certain things that a Western doctor doesn't talk about. So I've heard from a lot of women that they go to their regular doctor and they'll test for like thyroid or adrenals or look at different blood tests that you can do through a normal conventional doctor. But oftentimes those doctors don't know how to look at the underlying symptoms. And there are actually different tests that they aren't trained in or do than a functional medicine doctor does. So there's actually a really big difference in how they practice medicine and how they do testing. And so I think that that's a big indicator, because I know women who've like, oh, I've gotten tested after I had a baby. I did these things and everything was fine, or they had nothing to give me. And it's like, well, of course they don't have any information to give you because it's a different type of testing. And honestly, like, I'm not trying to bash the medical world, but they're not trained in the way that a functional medicine doctor is. The functional medicine doctor really looks at the root cause. And after doing these types of testing, like, I will never not do consistent blood work to find out where my levels are and how I need to supplement and make my body the most optimal. And if you've ever been pregnant or had a baby, like, your hormones are all over the place, and that's normal to happen. You just grew a baby, you're feeding a baby if you're breastfeeding. And so it's very natural to feel out of whack, not to mention all the toxins that we take in, whether we are living a super healthy lifestyle or not, those are unavoidable. And I think just the wear and tear on our bodies, that's what causes like depression, leaky gut, food sensitivities, allergies, like autoimmune diseases. That's what kind of leads to that. And so I just think like getting at the root cause of why you have things is so important. So I met initially how it kind of worked. If you ever like, what does it even mean to work with a functional medicine doctor? You basically, like, my doctor is all remote, so you don't even have to live in California where I live to work with her. And I feel like that's the same for most functional medicine doctors. They can order labs to wherever you live. So I just met with her initially, and she just kind of went down my symptoms, and she asked me like basic things like, how are you sleeping? Have you had hair loss? Do you have regular bowel movements? Like, are there things that are like that hurt in your body? Like, I kind of listed off the symptoms, and based off of the symptoms that I said before I even did testing, she had like recommended things for me. And this was even before testing. I was so surprised by the recommendations she gave me and how I literally, I'm not exaggerating, almost overnight felt a shift in just some of the supplements that she recommended that I have before even doing blood work. So I think that made me like sold, and I just knew this was the right thing. So if you're wondering like what those were, obviously everybody's body is different. So what might work for me might not work for you. And that's why I love blood testing. But one of the things she recommended is like fish oil and MCT oil. Like, I was experiencing so much brain fog and I didn't even realize it. So when I say blood work, you're probably thinking like, what type of blood work? How can I request that? And I don't know all the terminology. I just know, like, working with a functional medicine doctor, they're going to test for your mineral deficiencies. They're going to, like, I did a saliva test that tested cortisol levels. And then I did a food sensitivity one. And the biggest symptoms after doing this initial round of testing that I found out that I have been working on to this day is I had super high cortisol levels, so stress. Basically how cortisol levels work is in the morning, you want your cortisol levels to rise because that's kind of like getting you up in the morning, starting your day. And in the evening, you want your cortisol levels to dip and go down because you're getting ready for bed. I mean, it makes sense. But what we found is in the evening, they were really, really high. And so one of the reasons why I was having a hard time losing weight was because my body was like stressed to the max. Obviously, I'd had a baby. Not to
I
mention,
think one thing to like jump in here is that I don't think you felt like crazy stressed either. That was the thing. Like, the blood work kind of revealed that. I know there was
mm,
like intense seasons, but it was like, I like mine too. Like, it was like my cortisol levels were way higher.
yeah.
And it was just like, I don't feel like, I feel pretty good.
Mm.
Like, I know we'd have some intense conversations at night and sometimes things would bubble up. And that's where we did like a lot of that time kind of stuff we've talked about on the podcast. But I think sometimes these things reveal stuff like that's happening within that, like, you might have just gotten so accustomed to
Mm.
that you're just like, oh, this is normal.
Yeah. And for me, I think another reason why I had a hard time losing the weight or releasing trauma in my body is because Ollie, our second son, after I had him, 3 weeks like after we brought him home from the hospital, he was hospitalized and it was very scary. It was a traumatic incident. I didn't think he was going to make it. And so not only did I have like all the postpartum and hormone changes that happen, plus nursing a baby, but I also had trauma. And so my body was just in like overload. And when your body does that, it's just saying protect, protect, protect. And how it protects itself, it keeps weight on. And that's what was happening with me. It was just like I was so overworked. And so the cortisol level, when I found that out, was a huge indicator of like, your body is working so overtime. Like you need to get this down, and it needs to happen gradually so that you can do this in a healthy way to get those cortisol levels down. So of course, all the hormonal imbalances. I also found out I had leaky gut, which basically means you have too much bad bacteria built up in your gut. And so I immediately started doing no gluten, no dairy, and a few other sensitivities. But I think there's a lot of people who experience leaky gut that have no idea. And that also contributes to feeling bloated and like puffy, water weight, like all of that. And so for me, I think the biggest things that I tried to focus on was getting my cortisol levels down and then working on a leaky gut, which is consistent. And I also started working with a nutritionist for a little bit that was in the same office or worked in the same company as my naturopath. And I remember her telling me, like, when you lose weight, it's actually a better sign and a healthier sign if you lose the weight more slowly than like overnight. Like when you lose it super fast, that's actually a sign that there might be something off or you're not doing it in a super healthy way. And of course, like one of my main goals was to lose weight and lose inches. And I didn't want to hear that. But now I understand and I know like, oh, it has to be this gradual thing. I mean, that's like the same thing with business is you have to be consistent. There are no overnight success stories. It's the same thing with your health journey. It's about the consistent yeses that really do build up over time. So those are the things that I've literally been working on for the last year. And where do we go from here?
Yeah,
What are your questions?
I remember one thing that the cortisol thing was really interesting because of course, like imagine trying to lose weight, trying to do the thing. What do? Like you work out, you like push your body really hard.
Yeah.
Do you remember the aha that she told you about working out?
Yeah. So even like when your body is so stressed out like that, and even probably postpartum, she said the best thing for you to do is like walking, like initially, especially in the beginning when they were so high. And then I've gradually worked myself up to more intense workouts. But she's like, you need to be doing 20 to 30-minute walks. Like walking lowers your cortisol levels. It's so good for your body, just healthy movement. She's like, actually, if you do more intensive, like CrossFit or HIIT workouts, that's actually going to like have the opposite effect for your body. It's actually going to stress it out more and be more damaging to your body at this point. So I started walking more. Obviously, I love Pilates. So I continue that, but not super intensive workouts. And that was a big mind shift for me too, that I think I've adopted since having kids is I used to be CrossFitter, hardcore. If I'm not sweating, I'm not burning calories. And I've had this adjustment to just be more like gentle and easygoing. We had our friend on Robin Long from Lindy Wells. She has this amazing Pilates app. And that's kind of her philosophy too, is just, it's not so much about how intense or like large amounts, but just like 15 minutes. How can you get 15, 20 minutes? And so I've focused on like movement and celebrating that. So that was another big thing that I learned that I wish more women would know about too, is like walking is super powerful and can lower your cortisol levels.
I mean, so I'm trying to, so found the medicine. So got a referral, someone we trusted, found the functional medicine doctor, did the surveys, did the test, did a bunch of tests. I've done similar stuff, done what's that one called? The Dutch test, done the saliva test, the DNA test. These things are super insightful, and having someone can really read them and prescribe really accurate stuff. Cause you might just be hearing Chelsea say oil, fish oil, and you just go buy it, but you have no idea how your body's different. And that could actually hurt you. So this is not medical advice. You should work with someone who knows what they're doing and can really specifically recommend. And then you actually did the thing. You actually took the pills. That was my problem. I would do it and I get all the pills. And I'm like, So like you actually got the little pill containers off Amazon. and like organized them and took them. And even some of the things that were like a little bit more expensive, I feel like we splurged on. I'm thinking of like the shots. Like you did
Hmm.
shots for a season to really
I'm still
accelerate it.
doing them. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was like, hey, you can take these pills for a little bit, or we can do the shots, and it's just a little bit faster. You're gonna get this in your system a little bit faster. So those are a little bit more expensive. We did those just to like accelerate the process. I mean, when did you start to see like? Because I think I remember, I'm just like it's kind of hazy, but I think I remember being 2 months in, 3 months in, and still there's discouragement.
Oh, I was so discouraged. Like, our business could have been doing great. And I would go to bed for a couple months, with working with her, and I would be so frustrated. I would be so
Yeah,
frustrated. I would say like awful things about myself. It was hard to like, I avoided taking photos. I was like super picky about like photos and angles and like everything I would just like pick apart. And it's really hard to be in that place where I know that I can be in a different space and I
yeah.
know that the transition is coming.
And you were
But it
like,
was
"Is it working? I don't
frustrating.
know."
Yeah.
And she's expressing all this stuff to me. I'm like, "Hey, you should tell the medicine doctor. Don't tell me." But I was there for you. But I think there was a mindset shift that happened in that. Talk about that.
Yeah, we not only have been working with I've been working with this naturopath, but in our business, we love having mentors in our life speak into us. And we have like a mentor that we still work with to this day. And they're more kind of like a business consult slash marriage counseling slash all the umbrella of things that we talk about with him and his wife. And I remember having a conversation and they really challenged me and they said, like, Chelsey, what are you declaring over yourself? Like, what are you believing for? Like, what are you believing for now and declaring now so that you can see your breakthrough in the future? And here's where like you can talk about manifesting the power of your words. Like it is so important to like whatever you speak out is what you're already thinking. And the thing is your mind doesn't know the difference between vivid reality or like your imagination. And so I was finally like, I need to practice what I preach. We tell our rainmakers this all the time. Like, what are you declaring? What are you believing about yourself? And in the business realm and in the family realm, I believed all these great things and had positivity around that. And I'm not talking about toxic positivity, like just declare it and it'll happen. It's like, no, you have to do the work. But that was a piece of it. It's just like, when I speak it out loud, that's when it becomes a reality for my mind and my body to understand and know. And so I literally took out pink sticky notes and a Sharpie, and I started writing things that I wanted to see happen in my body. And I stuck them on my mirrors in our bathroom. I have it to this day that's still up. And it said things like, I'm just being honest with you, like, I will lose 20 pounds and I will look at myself in the mirror and say, damn, I'm radiant and sexy. Like that is what I wrote on a post-it note. And I also said things like, body, you can release trauma because I had
Hmm.
trauma from Ollie and just saying it out loud, like calming my nervous system. And
Yeah.
it's important to say it when you wake up. It's the first thing you're thinking. And when you go to bed. Another thing I said is body, like you will go to sleep. You will sleep the whole night. You will wake up feeling rested and strong. And I just started declaring those things. And I started declaring those things while also following the protocol that my naturopath had given me, not straying from that. And more than anything, as I'm beginning to have these mindset shifts about how I see myself and celebrating like the little progress, like trying on a pair of jeans that like fit a little bit better, like even a tiny bit I can tell, or like celebrating like the random compliment that a stranger gave me about my outfit. Like as I started to have this mental change, I started to see the physical because I was consistent with the work. And, I think like a big thing is the power of my words. So I've learned that and I will stand by that to this day of just like, what are you declaring over yourself? And if you wouldn't say those things to your kid or to a friend or a loved one, then don't say it to yourself. It's horrible to think that, but I know like I did that and it just got me in this spiral.
Yeah.
So, power of your words. I think another thing in this health journey that I think a lot of people can relate to is, and I didn't know this until I started working with my functional medicine doctor, is that You should actually be able to sleep through the whole night. Like waking up to go pee one, two, three times, that's actually a sign that there's something off in your body. And my whole life, I just thought that was random. Now, granted, sometimes I'll have a bunch of water right before I go to bed. And of course, you're going to pee. But if you like aren't drinking a ton of water, your body should not be waking you up in the middle of the night just because. Like if all the babies are sleeping, if everyone's asleep, like you shouldn't just wake up to have to pee. That's actually something that was off. And for me, that was another sign of like my cortisol levels. So that's just kind of like a nugget that I didn't even know about until I started working with her. Hey, Rainmaker, looking for a way to supercharge your self care routine? Look no further than our friends at Higher Dose. If you're looking for tools to help you feel rejuvenated, refreshed, and absolutely glowing, you have to check this brand out. I was new to even what a PEMF mat was, and I was super sick one day. I had body aches and a headache, and I laid down on our new PEMF mat, and right afterwards, I fell asleep, and I had the most deep, rejuvenating sleep I've ever experienced. And when I woke up from my nap, my headache and body aches were gone. And I was so amazed by the power of my PEMF. And don't even get us started on their red light therapy products and infrared sauna. They're perfect. And if you're ready to elevate your health and beauty rituals with Higher Doses nature-inspired wellness tools, head on over to rainmakerfamily.com/deals to get the hookup. That's rainmakerfamily.com/deals.
And I feel like one of the other things that started to be recommended by her and you start implementing now, it's like you're hardcore about it,
Hmm.
is your nighttime routine because
Yeah.
cortisol levels would be going up. So she started recommending some things. You have like really like a protocol or like a rhythm
Hmm.
that you're in now.
Yeah.
Talk through that and how that's changed over the last year.
Yeah. So I think nighttime routines are so important. They set you up for your next day. And what you go to bed thinking about is often what you sometimes will dream about or wake up thinking about. And if your mind is racing at night, it's really hard to calm it down and have a good night's sleep. So sleep was one of those things that I heavily focused on and still focus on to this day. One of the things that regardless if you're super healthy or not, it is recommended that you stop eating and sometimes even drinking like 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed, at
Yeah.
least 2 hours before you go to bed, because whether we realize it or not, our bodies are working so hard to digest food. And when you go to bed and you have those super late night snacks, like your body is working overtime and that will cause you to not oftentimes go into as deep of a sleep. Now, if you have to eat within that 2 to 3 hour window, and sometimes I do, sometimes I cave, if you can have it be protein, that's best, but definitely not sugar. Even like alcohol, we don't really drink a lot. And I think since being on this protocol, I've really just kind of cut it out. I'm like, I don't like the effects of it. It dehydrates me. I oftentimes don't sleep super well if I have a glass of wine, even at dinner time. So I have to make sure it's early in the day. So that's one thing. And then I would say by like 9:30 at night, I am like really winding down around like 8 o'clock. So I'm kind of backing up. So 2 to 3 hours, no eating. Around 8 o'clock, I am putting on blue light blocking glasses. So if I am on my phone, if I am doing something with lights around, like it's not affecting me as much. And then around 9:30, like I want to be doing some kind of bedtime routine. So we have a infrared sauna that I use almost every single night of the week, like during the weekdays, and I do that for half an hour, and then I'll go upstairs and I'll shower. Depending on the night, I will sometimes do red light therapy or lay on our PEMF mat, and then depending on what time that is, I will oftentimes try and read. And that's kind of like my nighttime routine. It's not always perfect. Sometimes Steve and I get talking and I get passionate and it's like, oh, shoot, it's 10 and I haven't started my routine. But that, I think, whatever your routine is, to get in a good rhythm of it and to like wind your mind down. And a big thing that we've done in the last year is like infrared sauna, red light therapy, and a PEMF mat. And if you have never heard of those things, they've been around for a long time. And the beautiful thing is that a lot of businesses and companies are now offering those types of services. So even if you can't afford to have like a sauna in your home, there are other like affordable options that you could have, or you can just pay to go
Yeah.
in to like a spa or into like, I know locally there's a tanning bed place that has like an infrared sauna and a red light therapy bed.
Yeah.
So there's an
I
option
mean, I
right
know
there.
when you used first, we're like, I want to get a thing. You were thinking like they have just these ones that like you just like sit in. It's like a
Hmm.
bag.
Yeah.
Even higher dose, they're friends of the show here. They have like a sauna blanket that you could
Hmm.
just like kind of, it's like a sleeping bag that's like a sauna.
Hmm.
They also have PEMF mats. So those are pulse electronic magnetic
Magnetic field.
fields. I think that's what it stands for. And it basically helps. How would you describe the PEMF mat?
Helps you sleep better, recovery,
Yeah, your
inflammation.
body is like basically electrical. You have electrical currents running through you all the time, and you can pick up charges and all these
Hmm.
things, and so it really helps neutralize that. And the PEMF mat has different settings to really stabilize or to like bring you into like more of a meditative or resting state. And that's been very effective. We both have been doing that
Hmm.
as well, just to like
Yeah.
help bring down those cortisol levels as well as help raise your HRV. That's one other thing you see us wearing these
Mm.
rings. We have the
The
aura
Oura ring.
rings. And we worked with a guy who really taught us how to like read the metrics on there and really what to look for
Mhm.
and how to really respond to those metrics. Like I have an alert set up when my HRV is too low, which is like your heart rate variability. Basically, when your body is stressed out, your heart will get very consistent. And there's just like millisecond differences. Okay. But like when you're in a super stressful environment, your heart rate gets super, super consistent because like your
Mm.
body's working really hard. When you're very relaxed, like on a Saturday, which farmer's market, done no cares in the world, your HRV will be way high. And you
Mm.
don't want to compare your HRV to someone else because it's unique to you.
Mhm.
So like Chelsea's is just naturally way higher than mine, but you want to compare yourself to yourself. And so I know if I've had like a 3-day drop in my HRV, I'm prone to getting sick. And so I'll start to increase immunity supplements to battle that thing and get it back up. I'll spend a little more
Mhm.
time on the PEMF mat. I'll do, cold therapy or just getting outside.
Mm.
It's funny, like a lot of this technology is freely available too,
Mhm.
like PEMF mat, it's like grounding. You can go outside barefoot and like get a very similar effect, right? Sauna, like, or like red light therapy, that's like sunlight, right? So like you can just go outside too. So,
Mhm.
but we have things that make it very convenient. Like I'm sitting on a PEMF mat that just goes throughout the day sometimes.
Mhm.
So anyways, using technology to like give you leverage in your
Mhm.
health is really fun for us. And that's something that we committed to investing in. It may not be for everyone, but if you want to check out some of that stuff, you can definitely go to rainmakerfamily.com/deals. We got some links to some of these products and things like that. We'll also put in the show notes anything that we talked about, any references that may be helpful. If you want to just go down the rabbit hole of exploring some of these connections, things like that, happy to help connect you.
Yeah. So this kind of like was my story of the pain that I was in, why I decided to go down this path, kind of the different things that I did. And then we just finished talking about like all these different like technology things that have really been around forever that are now like available to so many people, whether you can have it in your home, you can go to a studio and use it. But the last thing that I want to end with, that is so important as well in my health journey, and again, is the food that we eat, the types of food that we eat, and the oils and the ingredients that are in them. Again, I would say that I was a very healthy eater. Like on paper, I ate very healthy. I had a good, like, balanced diet, all of those things. But going down this health journey, I realized how much I need to like hone in on that even more. And one of the biggest ways that I've done that is just really being mindful of what is in our food and the ingredients. So we are very lucky. We live in a town that has amazing like access to farmers markets and produce. And so a lot of our produce is seasonal. It's from the farmers market, and we try and buy really high quality meats, but you can find at like Costco or other places. But we try and like, we love supporting farmers. And so that's one of the ways we've done it. But beyond that, along with like dairy free and gluten free that I've been doing, I've been really trying to pay attention to like ingredients, and especially with like snack products and even on the go. So, things that we've really tried to eliminate that I didn't know as much about in the last year, but I've learned is like seed oils. There are so many horrible ingredients in processed food, and we try and not have a lot of processed foods, but some things are unavoidable, like condiments. Like right now in my life, I'm not going to make all of our condiments, like we're going to buy them, but I've switched to like a ketchup that doesn't have this kind of ingredient in it or this sugar, and just being mindful of the types of food that we're using, and red dye and like all of those things, just becoming really picky about the types of food that we do buy. And now when we go and travel, like, and I do have something that accidentally had gluten in it or that has horrible seed oils, I actually feel it now, which is crazy. I never thought that I would feel that way. And Steven has an awesome resource that we like love to when looking for seed oils and things.
Yeah, so there's an app called Seed Oil Scout. It's very helpful when you're traveling, looking for restaurants. That'll help you learn more about that and avoid it. There's also, what's that shopping place? Thrive Market.
Yeah.
Thrive Market's a great online grocery shop that you can connect with more health conscious brands. Doesn't mean everything on there is perfect, but definitely leaning that direction. And we've used that a handful of times just to stock up. We do have some good like health food places
Yeah.
around here. But again, it's like, I think it's like baby steps, because when
Yes.
Chelsea's kind of like a all in 1,000% person.
Yeah.
And so when she started learning about this, it's like, I want to do it all. And
Everything is
like,
bad.
yeah, it's like all the soap and everything, get it all out. And so like, it was so overwhelming that like,
I felt like I did it
no, you
slow.
did. I know. But like, just because you wanted it done
Yeah, the
today.
mental load of like get it all out is
Like now
hard.
you know.
Yes.
So
now
we
I
just
know.
we just baby stepped into it. We replaced some soaps. Like that was it, you
Yeah.
know? And then like
That was even before this health journey,
shifted the
but
food
yeah.
thing a little bit,
Yeah.
right? And like it's just about very slow steps into it. Like this has been years in the making, and we still are progressing in it, honestly, you know? So yeah, just take it slow and be kind to your mind.
And be kind to your mind and be kind to your body. Okay. I think we should go ahead and wrap this up. I'm sure we will dive more into red light therapy, PEMF mats, like our biggest investment. We're about to do that under that podcast soon. But I just want to share very candidly with you my health journey in hopes that it really inspires you. If you have an autoimmune disease, if you have something going on that you just know is off, or you've been wanting to get to the root cause of some of the issues you've been experiencing, like I want to encourage you to like find an awesome naturopath, find an awesome like friend or someone who can help support you in that. Like I truly wish that every single woman, especially after having a baby, I think guys as well obviously can benefit from this, but we women experience so many different hormones, ups and downs, and body shapes and turns as we like age and everything. And I just think that there is a different way that we can do it that mainstream media might not be talking about, or even like Western medicine might not be sharing or has the knowledge to give you anyway. And I just want to encourage you with hope. Like I was very frustrated a year ago, and it was hard to like look at myself in the camera like I am right now. It was super hard, and I was hitting walls all the time, even though like I was still showing up, I was still running the business. And I just know a lot of women feel this way. The more I talk to, the more women are experiencing like highs and lows of hormones and the types of food we eat. And I just want to encourage you to tip you over to the edge, that like to find help to get at the root cause. And just because what you're experiencing is common does not mean that it's normal. So I hope this episode inspires you. It gets you to know me better and the things that I've been through, my own health journey, and take whatever you want from this and run with it, and keep moving the needle, because how you show up and how you feel will affect your family and will affect your business. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about getting testing, working, like figuring out what's wrong with your body, because it will make you function at a higher level, which then affects your relationship and your business as well.
That's a wrap for another episode of the Rainmaker Family Show. If this was helpful, share it with a friend. Share it with a friend and hit Chelsey up on Instagram. She's in her DMs personally, so you can hit her up at Chels_Diaz. Let her know if you're going to take action or this is impacting you, or you just want to share your story of your own health journey or things that have helped you. we are all ears. So until the next episode, we'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Rainmaker Family Show. Hey, if you are not a part of our Rainmaker Mastermind, we have a new opportunity for you to book a one-on-one strategy call with one of our Rainmaker coaches.
If you want to get a call with them, see if it's a good fit for you to work with us to build a business that allows you to have time freedom and financial freedom, you can get that call at makeItrainmama.com/podcast. That's makeItrainmama, MOMMA.com/podcast.